Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Sarada Jailal. I'm the SDCL Director and Career Counselor at the Berkeley College Dover campus. And I welcome everybody here that's live in the audience and everyone who is joining us on our on-live setting. As you know, this event will be live streamed, so we will have an option for questions and answers after. Without further ado, I thank you for your patience. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Alana Cueto.
Thank you very much. I have handouts that list an agenda and business cards at the back table to the left, should anyone want a handout and want to follow as I go along. Tonight I'll be speaking in regards to looking at the who, what, when, where, and why in leadership. And I'm going to tie this into leadership in healthcare and further tie it into my journey in leadership. I started out my career as a healthcare, in my undergrad, I did a bachelor's in healthcare management. And so I started out my career as a healthcare manager in a hospital setting, and then later worked my way into nursing as a second career. So perhaps like many of you here this evening who chose nursing as a second career or healthcare as a second career, you'll be able to understand and correlate to my experience as well. And then show you how that path led me to where I am today as a nurse executive leader in academia, chairing a nursing department at a local college in Jersey City. So when we look at the who, in leadership, we must reflect on who we are. So if I bumped into any of you in the elevator and I said, "Hi, my name is Alana Cueto," what would you say? What would your response be?
How are you?
Right? It's important to always have like that 15-second elevator speech, right? Introducing who you are. Why is that so important?
That's how people get to know who you are.
Right. And what you represent, right? Whether it's, what program are you in? International business. So you would say, "Hi, my name is Claudia Cordova, and I am in the International Business Program." It identifies you, right? And then from there, we can sort of find a commonality where to build that relationship which will help us to network, right? And we must also resist, as we go along in our careers, I've learned, into feeding the ego. What do I mean by that? Resist feeding the ego. That's right. That's something that I learned in nursing. It's being present, right? And that holds true in any career that you're in. Being present, being in the moment, making eye contact. I love the table over here. Everyone is making eye contact, and that's important. Why is that important? Because 65% of what you're not telling me, you're actually saying with your body language, right? So it's how you carry yourself in that moment, how you speak, how you listen, and being present. And also it's about humility. Humility and being humble. It's essential when you're a transformational leadership. And when I say transformational leadership, it's about helping others and growing others, developing them, not just yourself. It's about elevating others as you go along in your path. So when I say what, right? Keep your eye on the ball. Stay focused. What are you focused on? What are you going to be focused on? For me, as a healthcare leader, as a nurse, I was focused on being the best nurse that I can be because I knew that the patients' lives, I would be ultimately responsible for them, right? For each of us, we have different goals, right? The what is different for each of us. Perhaps for Claudia, it's something related to business in the international setting. What program are you in? Fashion merchandising. For you, it's probably being what? Share with us. The best designer that you can be? Yeah. Yeah, and being innovative, right? So for you, the what is that innovation that you bring, right, within your craft. So what are your short-term and long-term goals? This is all part of the what as well. How do we get to be the best that we are when we're planning, right? Creating the short-term goals, the long-term goals, and part of that encompasses the when, because you want to set up SMART goals. Anyone here familiar with what SMART goals are? Okay. SMART goals are SMART to be S for being specific, M for making it measurable, A for making it assignable, R making it realistic, and T for making it time-based. You want to create goals that you can actually outline and measure as you go along as you're reaching those goals. It's sort of like creating that to-do list and being able to cross off as you reach the goal and move on to the next and build, right? Everything that you do is building, creating that stepping stone. The where. Where is understanding where we come from, right? Because it helps to establish the foundation for where we're going. I'm going to share a little bit about my own personal background. I'm one of 7 children. I grew up in the housing projects in the Bronx. For all intents and purposes, I should not be here today. And that's the reality. I was the first of 7 kids to graduate high school. I was the first of 7 kids to go on to higher education. Right? We each have a journey, and it's about not letting those challenges, right, that we face in our life become obstacles. We can't allow them to define who we are and to block our path from where we want to get, for where we want to go. I left my home at the age of 18. But I had this idea in my head of what I wanted out of life. And I knew that in order to achieve those goals, I needed to pursue education, because it was the only way that I would be able to break the vicious cycle, so that when someday I had kids, they would not be faced with the same challenges that I was faced with. So I know that we each face challenges in our lives. And I know through the literature that for a lot of students in higher education, and now I'm speaking specifically to nursing because I correlate a lot of my research to nursing, the 3 main obstacles that prevent nurses from continuing their studies, number 1 is family responsibilities. Number 2 is finances. Where am I going to get the money to finance my education? And the third is having role models that look like them, that they can identify with. So it's important for us, when we establish those short-term and long-term goals, to reflect and put into action those things that we're going to take into account, including those challenges and how we're going to overcome them. It's important to align ourselves with people who could serve as role models and mentors. And it's not about having someone tap you on the shoulder and say, I want to mentor you. No, it's about you seeking out and reaching out to that individual and saying, hey, you know, you've reached the goals that I'm now looking at, and that's where I want to be. You've reached the goals that I look at and admire and respect. Is there a possibility that you could mentor me, whether it's formally or informally, to help me to get to where I want to get, to help me to be where you are today? And I guarantee you, more often than none, that individual that individual is going to embrace that opportunity to elevate you and help you along the way. I had the opportunity this evening with Lynn to tour and Zach the campus here, and I have to tell you, I was really taken aback, by the services that are provided here. I was so excited when I entered the simulation lab and saw the mannequins. Why? Because it allows our students to learn in a setting that's safe, right? Without judgment. So it's okay to make mistakes along the way, but let's learn from them and let's recharge, right? And refresh ourselves, shake it off, and say, I can do this, I can move on, I can motivate myself to do this because look at the support system that I have in place. And that's essential too, to create a support system. And sometimes it's not family. For myself, it wasn't family. For me, I had to seek that support system through the school setting that I was in and through different associations and organizations. Tonight, I'm really proud to say that I have members of the National Association of Hispanic Nurses here tonight who came out to support me. And I often say when I talk about my partnership and my collaboration with the Hispanic Nurses Association, I often say they're an extension of my family. And that's because they've mentored me from being a student nurse and watched me grow and evolve into the leader and I'm still evolving. Don't get me wrong, I'm not quite there yet. I often say, and I'm not trying to be religious on you, but I often say, I'm still a work in progress. God is still working on me, because I always feel there's always opportunity to grow and to learn, right? Even tonight, perhaps I could learn from one of you and you can share a little bit about, your background and your area of studies and your expertise, something that I'm not familiar with. But I have to be receptive to listen and to be present and to welcome that opportunity. And I think that I've been very fortunate in my life to have that support system outside of my family life because I didn't have it within my family. And that also helped me to be vulnerable. Sometimes in life, we have to learn our strengths and weaknesses, but we have to also be vulnerable and realize that sometimes these challenges that we overcome will only help us to be stronger, right? And to be able to be more receptive in terms of empathy and compassion of what other people are going through. So when we talk about the where, it's understanding where you come from, helping it guide you to establish the foundation to where you're going and keeping your eye on that focus. Like I said, we all have a journey and that is distinct to each of us as individuals. So learn to trust your journey. Now I'm going to focus really on the why, right? One of the things a lot of my friends can tell you that I often quote is, stop and smell the flowers. Roses sometimes have thorns. As much as I love gardening and it's my pastime, right? I know that roses have thorns and sometimes I'm going to get pricked, right? So learn to stop and pause and reflect. And that can come in many shapes, right? It can come through meditation. It could come through prayer. It could come through, yay, I passed that test. I'm going to go treat myself to a manicure because I deserve it. So it's about rewarding yourself along the way and not always beating yourself up because you didn't reach that bar that you set so high for yourself. It's okay to set the bar high, but it's also good to reward yourself and stop and reflect along the way, right? How did you get there? And now that I've reached that goal, how can I reset that goal so that I could continue along in my journey? So the why. Now I'm going to tie it into leadership a little bit. There are two types of leaders, right? I believe that those who lead by command and control and those who lead by helping people understand the company's core belief so that others want to follow on their own volition. When we go for an interview, what's the first thing we do as professionals? Anybody? Research. What do you research?
The company products, the values, their mission.
Their mission. It's one of the first, it's like interview 101. One of the first things we do before we go on an interview is we research the company or the hospital, right? Or the facility's mission statement. What am I walking into? What are their beliefs? What community do they target? Is that in their mission statement or in their value statement? But let me ask you something. Once you get the job, once you're employed by the hospital, how often do you go back and look at that mission statement to ensure that you are carrying it out in your day-to-day operations? Any hands?
You do it at Berkeley all the time.
Well, then applaud. I was actually impressed when I read the mission statement on the wall downstairs. I wonder how many of you in here know what that is. And your students. And one of the things I commented to Lynn and Zach is, when they were giving me the tour, this is phenomenal because in everything that you're doing here for your students, whether it's the surgical tech students or the certified medical assisting students or the nursing students, you're giving breath to your mission statement. I've never been to a university that says that they have career services for life. They will help you during the lifetime of your career to help you get a job. How phenomenal is that? I want to go back to school and come back to Berkeley. That's amazing. How many companies do that? Did you guys know that Berkeley offers that? You didn't, and you're students. So as leaders in the healthcare administration field, right, we want to subscribe to the approach which involves pulling people towards values and what? Not pushing them towards goals. Leading with the why is indispensable in leadership. It's indispensable because to be effective leaders, we must be able to articulate the company's vision and value statement in a manner that others can embrace the desired goal or outcome. Now, I specifically said healthcare administration, but doesn't this relate to fashion? Doesn't this relate to international business? It does. In any field that you go into, you want to be able to articulate that company's vision and value statement, especially if you're leading a team. How do you gain buy-in if you're not articulating that mission and that vision? Leaders that are able to persuasively articulate their vision to their team members are in a position to inspire people, to help them better understand the aim of their actions, right? As your team members gain better understanding, leaders can empower them to what? Empower them to gain more autonomy so that they on their own can figure out the how and the what, which ultimately creates motivation. What better way to lead a team than to be able to educate them on what that mission, value statement is, and motivate them to accomplish the job. And it comes down really to education. Our roles, no matter what field you're in, include educating our team members so that they deeply understand the why, and lead with the why becomes inspirational. You become then a value-based teacher. You become that mentor for that individual, just as someone hopefully mentored you to get where you want to go. There's an author by the name of Simon Sinek who wrote the book Start with Why, and he developed research-based principles that demonstrate that leading with why gets better business results by creating better leaders. He believed that by motivating from within for a cause, a common cause that people can share, really motivates and increases intrinsic motivation in the team members that you're leading. He developed and coined the term golden circle, right? And if you look at the handouts that I distributed that are, you'll see that you can imagine, for those of you that don't have the handout, it's 3 layers, right?
Anybody not have a handout? Everybody has one.
It's 3 layers, and you want to expand outward like a target. The innermost layer representing the why, which is the company's core belief or purpose. The center or the second ring representing the how. This is how your company, your facility, your hospital is going to fulfill its purpose. And finally, the outermost circle, the ring furthest away from the bullseye, represents the what. What your company does to fulfill that core belief. So let me ask you this. Why do you think the why is important in leadership?
Because you can't walk around with no purpose. You can't walk around with no purpose.
Okay. You can't walk around with no purpose. Expand on that a little bit. Let's say you're guiding a team. What program are you in?
I'm in the surgical process tech.
Okay, wonderful. My eyes lit up. So you're going to be part of a team in that OR.
Oh, no. I won't work in the OR. I'll work
Okay.
in central
Okay, central service, you're still part of a team. Okay, now let's say you're the manager and you're looking to motivate your staff, right? And you're looking at this philosophy, the golden circle, and you're looking at, okay, what is the why? Why do we do the things we do? Right? Now expand on what you were saying and align it with what I just said.
The reason why we do what we do is so that people won't, get infected when people do surgeries.
Okay.
But if we lost the reason why, we wouldn't even care about the job in the first place.
But how do you convey that message to your team members, to your staff? We do what we do because we don't want to create infection in our patients.
We save lives.
To save lives, right? But more than that, you're getting to your end result, right? Which is to save lives, right? It's just a better business model, right? It creates also better leaders. You'll become a better leader. And the people that you're guiding, you're elevating them as well with you. Because now they're part of that team, they're becoming accountable, they're part of that decision making, and they bought into, we need to do what we do in a better format, in a better way to decrease infection and save lives.
I think what he was also saying makes sense too. You're showing that there's a greater purpose.
There is, absolutely. There is a greater purpose, especially that you're motivating from within and you're gaining trust, right? Trust from the community that you serve and trust from the members that you work with, your team members, right? And trust from those that you report to, right? Because it's going to show in the data, right? There's a decrease in infection. Now, can you describe ways where we can motivate from within? What about creating an environment that promotes diversity and inclusion? Or I'll give you a simple example, perhaps getting staff involved in developing that strategic plan of how we're going to decrease readmission rates or infection, right? Not just saying, hey, I developed the plan, here it is, you're going to follow it. But it's, let's have a meeting and let's sit down and look at these numbers and what this means and allowing them to each bring something to the table to contribute, right? So that when things are good, you can celebrate it together. If things go a little off plan, you can revisit that and see as a team, where did we go wrong? Where can we reevaluate this, right? To determine how we can tweak it to make it better as a team, right? On the flip side, when we take command and control and we look at it from that perspective, it can backfire. It can backfire on us because it can generate results in short term, but eventually, guess what? It's going to decrease morale. It's going to cause disengagement and diminish productivity, because people are going to be like, this is a culture where they create fear because they're telling me, if you don't reach this goal, you're not going to have a job here next month. Who wants to work for a company like that, right? You don't. Or who wants to work for a leader like that? And I say that because I look at all of you as leaders in your field, right? You may be students today, but I expect to hear your name, right, someday within the fashion industry. And Claudia within, international business. You're all gaining the expertise here needed to go on in your path, in your career.
Alana, I also wanted to point out something that maybe people don't realize is that you don't know who's following you. Even though you may not be thinking that you're in a leadership position, it may not be the case in your job, but in your home or in your community, you're always, in a way, probably being followed by someone.
Yes.
And if you want to practice, that's the best place.
Yeah. And I'll give you a perfect example of something that happened very recently. I belong to an organization at the national level, right? And I had a disagreement with the president-elect of that national organization. But I had the data, right? I believe in evidence-based practice. So I brought the facts, I brought the data, right? I highlighted, I'm like, the bylaws say, page 9, paragraph 16, and I brought the facts to the table. But this individual was so blocked to what I was saying that she immediately turned it around and made it into something personal and said, "You have conflict of interest." And I said, "No, I don't. But if we don't look at the facts before we make a decision, guess what? Our organization is going to be facing conflict of interest charges, right? Because that's what's happening." And the individual actually pulled me aside and said, "You know what? I think you have an issue here." And I said, "No, I don't. Actually, I think you're the one with the issue here, because it went from something professional and you turned it around into something personal. And the reality is, you don't realize, but I've been a part of this organization as a student, and I've been looking up to you as a leader for many, many years. And I actually voted for you to be in the position that you're in. So I believe in you, and I look to you for leadership. And I expect you to do the right thing." And with that, she paused and stepped back. She thought about it. She said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize."
I love that story because in that story, the follower became the leader, and the leader now is following you.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it happened as early as this week, this case scenario. And I got a call from her last night, and she says, "I just want you to know that I'm really deeply sorry for making it something personal. And I went to the dean at the college where I work, and I shared what happened. And the dean said to me, sometimes things like that happen in leadership, and we just have to pause and reflect before we respond. And to help you, because you're now president-elect, you're eventually going to be president, we have a communication course for leaders here on campus that I'm going to recommend that you take to help you. So this individual called me last night. She was so happy and excited and said, I just want you to know that I went to my dean and I shared what happened and I signed up for this course. And I signed up for this course because you inspired me to be the best leader that I can be. Because I never realized how many people were looking at me. And that's the reality.
But it takes humility for a person to acknowledge that, and in the corporate world, you'll be facing a totally different picture for a lot of cases.
I've been on the flip side of that too.
Sometimes it's very political,
Yeah.
and your ideas are taken, and somebody else takes credit for it, and you're in the shadows.
But that's when you have to look at how that organization is aligning, again, their day-to-day operations with their mission and value statement, and also look at the culture of the organization.
If I may say something.
Yeah.
The way I look at that, it's not the organization itself, because the organization encourages leadership, but it's in the support and being a leader, it's more about the individual.
Visual.
So the speech that you're giving for somebody who's going to be in a leadership position in the future is excellent, because you have to have those characteristics to be a good leader. But make no mistake, you'll be faced with very, vicious people out there.
Oh, and I faced that. My very first job bedside as a nurse, I was bullied. I was bullied by the staff nurses. Because there's this phenomena in nursing, and my colleagues here can attest to it. They call it eating your young. Eat your young. Why? Rather than mentoring and guiding and supporting and providing the resources and tools so that I succeed as a new nurse. But what I did was I stayed there for as long as I could, got whatever skills I needed, and took those skills elsewhere. And that's where you have to then re-examine what's best for you. How much can I tolerate with the bullying? How much can I tolerate with this one individual, not acknowledging what I'm doing or not giving me credit for the ideas that I contribute? Because guess what? Then you're sharing your ideas with the wrong person. And if the company is aware that this is going on, then they're contributing to that by way of their culture. And you have to reassess, do I want to be part of that?
The other thing I wanted to point out is, even if you are in a situation where you have individuals
Mm-hmm.
that are not seemingly, sharing and contributing to the mission, the overall goal and mission, everybody answers to someone. Even the owner answers to his customers, right? So when you make it about, that's why I like your story, when you make it about the individual, then they feel attacked and it seems like it's personal. If you make it about the mission, then it's more objective.
Mm-hmm.
You make it about the mission.
Absolutely. Now, getting back to Synec's research, why is it important? It's important because what it found is that most companies, most healthcare facilities and hospitals start far away from the bullseye, right? By first considering the what and then moving to the how. Many companies neither mention their why nor understand it well enough to articulate the why they do things the way they do it. And that was one of the problems I had at that hospital where I was being bullied. I never understood why they did things. It wasn't innovative. It was archaic. They were doing things from like 100 years ago, and every time I questioned it, they would say, well, this is the way we're used to doing it. I said, but why? That's just how we do it. But why? It's like a 2-year-old kid. But why, mommy? Why? But we have to stop and ask the why. Why do we do things like this? Because guess what? maybe by doing it in a different way, we can contribute to better productivity, better environment, whether it's a better environment for our nurses or for the, staff at that company. Now, Synex research found that companies like Apple, everyone have an Apple iPhone, right? Guess what? Apple is one of the few companies that start with the Y. And he correlated that to their extraordinary results. Now, here at Berkeley College, from the tour I got, from the information I gained, it's about empowering our students to achieve lifelong success in dynamic careers, right? So now we've looked at who we are in that leadership role, right? What our focus is, right? Keeping an eye on that ball, on that focus, defining what it is, creating short and long-term goals, right? The when, the SMART goals, making them measurable, reevaluating them, right? Short-term goals, 3 years out. Long-term goals, maybe 5 years, 10 years. Where do you want to be? Once you get this degree, what's your next goal? What's on your agenda? What's your next stepping stone to get to that next, to follow that path in your leadership career? We're understanding where we came from to help establish where we're going, to establish that foundation. And we looked at the why. Why are we here? Why are we doing the things that we're doing? How can we make a difference? Anyone have questions for me?
Let's give Alana a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Alana, I want to take some time to guide people. I don't know if maybe you wanted, because I'm gonna be on the computer, Sarada, to just look and see if there were questions coming in. You want to do it on the computer? Okay. And then, of course,
Yeah.
you deserve water.
Thank you.
Definitely deserve water. So, I think a lot of what Alana said makes sense for, our students and our grads and our alums. Even for myself, I took notes.
Okay.
Because it's what we need to hear for us to be able to position ourselves in a way that gives us that lifelong career satisfaction. Because you can always get a job, but you want a career that's meaningful for you, that aligns with your values, your
Absolutely.
goals, right? And makes you satisfied on a deep level. So I'm so appreciative of what you shared with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so questions from anyone here, please. Don't be shy. Even if it's just about Alana, about herself. Go
Sarada.
ahead. Go ahead, Sarada.
What would you find is your biggest challenge, or was your biggest challenge, and what did you do to overcome it?
My biggest challenge, believe it or not, is letting go. When I start, I'm a risk taker. I love being in positions that are new positions that no one else has done or been in that position. So I've learned that about myself. I've taken the time to reflect and look at my strengths and weaknesses, and I've learned that I'm a risk taker. I love to be, when you look at my resume, almost every position, I would say 95% of the positions on my resume have been brand new positions where the company said, no one else has been in this position. It's a newly developed position, right? But once I develop that foundation for that role, once I've got it up and going and running, and it's time to move on, it's hard for me to move on. It's hard for me to let go. And it's that transition, to something new. As much as I love new things, it's hard to let go. And that I always find to be a challenge. I somehow always identify who I am with the roles that I'm in and the roles that I've helped to develop. Sure.
A leader is usually a leader in different capacities. How do you manage time and still be effective in all your different roles of leadership throughout your career?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. And I'll tell you, it wasn't always easily juggling. You have to learn one, time management, two, prioritization. I'm at a phase in my life right now, in my personal life, where my children are adults. When they were younger, I had to learn to balance that my family came first, my children came first. And being a part of the organization, although I was a member, perhaps I couldn't be as active. So maybe I'd volunteer my time perhaps maybe twice a year to that organization, as opposed to now where my children are adults and I could be much more active and visible in the organization and be able to maybe perhaps attend, every other month, or quarterly. And just, it's a matter of organizing, what's important to you, prioritization, and figuring out what's really meaningful to you now at this stage in your career as well. Because certain organizations will facilitate networking and possibly getting a job. Yeah, sure.
You had said that your background, your raising, you didn't have a lot of support from your family, and you came from poverty and everything. And I know that coming from that kind of background, it's difficult
It
to
is.
know what you want to do with your life. But you said you knew from early on.
I knew my whole life as a young girl. I have to be honest with you, I didn't discover it. I just always knew I wanted to be in healthcare. As far back, I often say that I didn't choose nursing, nursing chose me. And that's the truth. And I'm living testament to that. As far back as I can remember, I remember stitching up my dolls, taking them apart and putting them together again, and caring for them and bandaging them up, and nursing them. I've always been a nurturer, although I didn't receive much nurturing. To just share a little further about my background, my dad was an alcoholic, eventually died of liver cirrhosis, and my mom suffered from mental illness, but honestly went undiagnosed. So I grew up in an environment where it was very, very emotionally abusive. And the only thing I wanted to do was finish high school and get out, because I knew it was my only salvation.
Wow. Any other questions for Alana? Alana, I had a question also for you. It's tagged to what she said. I find that sometimes I have two types of students. Because I'm the director for the career services for the online campus. And, on one hand, I have students that come to me already set. I'm going to be a police officer, period, that's it. I don't want to know nothing, no, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, then I have the other ones, I have no idea. I'm just trying to focus on this class, this assignment that's due on Saturday, and that's it. I don't know, don't ask me. So I feel like, working with these two different types of students is a challenge for me. How would you think that I could best motivate those two to be, on one hand, exploring their careers, and on the other hand, really, helping them to focus a little bit more on what is their right path?
Okay. Well, I think it's going to be easier to motivate the one who already knows what they're looking for, right? Obviously, because they came in already knowing this is what I want, right? I'm fixed on this. But giving them options and letting them know exactly what that entails. Because I've seen it in nursing students where they come in and they're like, I'm so focused on wanting to be a nurse. But then when I take them out into a clinical rotation, or if I have them in class or in a skills lab, I'll say to them, I know you're really focused on wanting to be a nurse, but why? Why do you want to be a nurse? And I had a student like that actually, and she said to me, well, my mom is a nurse. So I figured I'd go into nursing as well. It's the wrong reason. You need to feel it from within, because nursing is not for everyone, right? A lot of the allied health programs, it's not for everyone. You really have to feel it, believe it, and be in that role exploring it to understand what that entails. It's not for the faint of heart, right? And then the one who's uncertain is giving them options. Look at what we have here. Where do you see what do you see yourself doing? What are you good at? Are you good with your hands? Are you good with listening? You know, your eyes, are you good with your eyes? So you can pair them with the career that best matches, right? Who they are as an individual, and help them to possibly explore that, although maybe they had not considered it. I saw my husband when he went into the surgical tech room, and he was like checking all the equipment out, and I said, do you want to go back to school? You seem so excited to look at all this equipment. He was like, no, I'm done. But it's that kind of thing. You see an individual's reaction when they're in a setting. So I hope that helped answer your question. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
So piggyback on what you said, how would you tell certain students without the infrastructure in terms of support within their family that they could seek mentoring in the faculty of Berkeley, and how could they benefit from it?
Absolutely. I always feel that the first person you should go to is your professor, your classroom professor. But sometimes students tend to shy away from that, right? They'll say, no, I'm not going to let them know what I'm going through. And perhaps they reach out to a peer, right? And I feel that as classmates, as a peer, it's important to be able to know what you can assist your friend with and where you draw the line and say, you know what, maybe we should get help from the professor or from guidance or from career services or for someone who's more equipped, right, to be able to answer your questions and guide you. We don't always know all the answers, right? I've been in scenarios where I've done community health fairs as a volunteer nurse. And I recall this one instance where this mom came over to me and she looked at me, she goes, do you speak Spanish? And I said, I do, I speak Spanish. And she confessed to me in Spanish, I'm a new mom, right? But it's my second birth. I have another child at home that's 2 years old, but I'm feeling something that I had never felt before. When my child cries, I just have this desire to pick him up and slam him across the room. And that's a horrible feeling. I'm such a bad mother for even verbalizing what I feel. But I knew as a nurse right away, right? This is out of my scope, right? She needs to see a physician, right? And this is no longer, but I'm familiar with, right? Postpartum blues, postpartum depression, and postpartum psychosis. And I realized when she expressed that to me that she was already at postpartum psychosis, where she was already thinking about harming her child. And she needed help in controlling that and better understanding how she can seek help. But it was out of the realm of my hands. But at the same time, I also knew I had a responsibility because she shared that information with me. So what I did was I sought out a physician within the health fair. We had 3 physicians. I sought out a general medicine physician, primary care, who was there. And I expressed to him, obviously asking her authorization, is it okay for me to share what you've shared with me, right? Because you don't want to violate any privacy, because I'd like to see you overcome this. And I feel that that's the same here, although it's a different scenario, but it's the same. Within our scope, sometimes there are limitations. And we need to know how much we can get involved and then say, hey, let's talk to the professor. Let's speak to someone who can actually better assist you than I can. And I was very fortunate throughout my course of studies, where I always seemed to be taken under the wing of someone who said, let me guide her, Let me mentor her, even if it was informal mentorship. Let me put her on the path where she's gonna succeed. And I found that throughout my career, for the most part, with the exception of that one scenario where I shared where I was bullied. And when I experienced that, I knew I had to reevaluate what my career goals were, and to take from that environment that I was in, as toxic as it was, whatever skills and experience I can, so I could build on that moving forward. So,
So we have an online question from the Brooklyn location.
all right.
Okay, so Brooklyn is asking, what is the best advice that you would give to a student entering the health services field for the first time?
What is the best advice? Okay. To a health services student.
Entering the health services field for the first time.
Honestly, I'm going to say to find someone, a role model or a mentor, to guide them along the way. And it could be even asking the professor, do you know someone perhaps in the community who is already established in the health services, perhaps even alumni, that can guide me, as I'm starting my career in this field? Yeah.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited. Brooklyn in the house.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Can you explain to students what a professional development organization is and the importance of it and the benefits, and maybe share a story of how it was beneficial to you?
Wow, I have lots of stories of how it's been beneficial to me. From my first undergrad degree, which is in healthcare management, I was advised by one of the professors to get involved in the American College of Healthcare Executives as a student. As a student, I joined that organization. And here I am 20 somewhat years later, although I'm only 25, and I'm still a member. And what that has done for me is that it allowed me as a student to network with individuals that were already chief nursing officers, hospital VPs and presidents who were already at the top in their careers. Right? It allowed me to network with them through the different meetings and events that chapter, my local chapter, held. And I was able to get to know them and to observe. To observe them is so key because you learn so much, even in how they work the room. Here I was, the shy student in the corner, and I see these VPs and, and they're working the room and shaking hands. And I'm like, wow, maybe I can do that too, right? It sort of gives you that little confidence that you need sometimes, right? To spark that within you, to motivate you, and then be able to say, okay, next time I come, and I would set goals for myself. Next time I come, I'm going to bring business cards as a student, and I'm going to give them out to 10 people in the room. If I could just shake hands with 10 people in the room and give 10 people in the room business cards. And that's how it started for me. So it helped to motivate me, empower me, and provide the confidence that I needed. And I'll share something with you. One of those hospital presidents, actually, if you don't mind, I'll mention his name, Mike Diagnos, who's the president of Raritan Bay Medical Center, located in Perth Amboy, which is now part of the Meridian Healthcare family. Later on, much later in my career, I had established my own consulting company. And guess what? I made an appointment to meet the president of this hospital because I wanted to get my foot in the door to be able to target their medical students and, their dental students that would rotate through the hospital because it's a teaching hospital. And lo and behold, it was Mike Diagnos who I had met as a student in one of these networking events. And he said to me, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Sure, you're Mr. Diagnos. I remember meeting you at a networking event through the American College of Healthcare Executives." And he was like, Yes. And he goes, what can I do for you? And when I shared with him why I was there, he was, wow, and really impressed. Until this day, we keep in touch. And now I sit on their community advisory board for the hospital, which means that now I sit at the table as one of the leaders helping to create positive change, right? That would positively affect the health and wellness of the community that that hospital serves. So these organizations, I cannot begin to tell you how important it is as a student to belong, to be present. Even if you go and you're standing in the corner for the first time, but go and keep going, because the more you go, the more empowered you're going to be and your confidence will build up. And the more people you meet, the bigger your network is going to be.
Thank you so much.
You're
Alana.
welcome.
Are there more questions? Anybody else have more questions? If you do, we can entertain them. Anybody? All right. Well, I wanna take some time to present
Oh
you
my
with
God,
a
that's so
small
nice.
thank you.
Thank you very
because
much.
I know you
I'm
came
a
from a
hugger.
long distance, and I'm so appreciative that
Thank
you
you
came to
very
speak with us.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, before
Thank you,
anybody
guys.
leaves, you're welcome. Before anybody leaves, I want to share with you guys two things. One, we have a career services information sheet here to hand out to everyone. So if you would just take one and pass it around. And what's on the sheet, let me just take one so I know what I'm talking about. What's on the sheet is every campus that we have, the email address and the phone number for the career services, because this event was sponsored by, Career Services Online, as well as the Student Development Campus Life office here at Dover. So, Sarada, you can take a bow. Thank you so much for assisting me. Lisa St. Hilaire, who's the online career services team, health services career counselor, as well as Lynn. Lynn is here. Say hi, Lynn. She helped us as well to provide the refreshments and to help us with the setup. Who else can I thank? Of course, Alana, and all your professors that allowed you to come. I really do appreciate everybody that was able to come and take the time out of their schedule. We're also handing out an evaluation for everyone to please fill out. If anybody needs a pen or pencil or something to write with, if you raise your hand, we can provide you with that. That just gives us a little bit of feedback on how things went for you. It's really quick. It's one page. It's just a few questions. And online, I also sent it to anybody who's online. So if you look in the chat room, there is a link for the online version of the survey. So those are the two handouts that, in addition to Alana's handout with her remarks from her presentation today, that we want to share with you. So as you walk out, if you wanted to just put the surveys face down on your table, it's fine, and then we'll collect them before we leave. Is there anything else? No? Okay, just want to say thank you for everybody for coming, and again, we really appreciate you coming. Thank you. Have a good night.